very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
Since the creation of the klepto-captive task force, the Department of Justice has announced several high-profile asset seizures. This includes the seizures of yachts valued at $300 million and $90 million, both of which were owned by Russian oligarchs. I understand that some of these assets have now traveled many miles to the United States. I also hear that the administration hopes to liquidate these seized assets and to use the funds from them to provide continued support to the people of Ukraine, which I personally would welcome. Can you elaborate on the process for transporting and storing these seized assets? And could you share any information that you're able to about the government's current plans to liquidate these assets? How much are they, where are they, and what's likely to happen?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, I can elaborate on the mechanisms for transport, at least at a relatively high level, without getting into the specifics of the particular boats. We rely on expertise from really across the U.S. government to do this. It is a resource-intensive effort, and it's one that requires prosecutors here in Washington. It requires prosecutors in some instances in extremely far-flung places, and it requires expertise on behalf of the Marshals Service for assisting with the maintenance and the transport of vessels, the Coast Guard in some instances, and truly pockets of the government that may not come immediately to people's mind. Once here, the question is really how do we maintain these vessels in order to maximize the liquidation value at the end of the day. There is a market for yachts. There is no market for moldering yachts, and so we have to take care to make sure that we're maintaining that value.
So just tell us what happens to them, the assets.
So in the interim between a seizure and ultimate order of forfeiture, at which point we can start marketing any asset.
So
I'm sorry.
How much is there, and how does the money go out?
So currently, as a result of an appropriation earlier this year, we have $67 million dedicated to the task force work, and a part of that is dedicated to this sort of maintenance, this kind of maintenance issue. And the way that goes out really depends on the asset that we're talking about. With respect to a yacht that's too large to dry dock, that's a very different sort of question than a boat that's significantly smaller or a piece of artwork that may be stored in a much cheaper way.
Can you give us the total amount of transferred assets once they come to this country? How big is the transfer?
To date, what we have actually brought into the United States is the Amadea, which is the yacht that was seized in Fiji earlier this year. We have made seizures elsewhere around the world. That's the asset that has been transported into the United States, and as you say, it's roughly a $500 million vessel.
So the total value of all the assets seized is $500,000? I can't believe that.
No, sorry. $500 million for that, billion with a B for that asset in particular.
Right, that sounds better.
Yeah, absolutely. Beyond that, there have been seizures of financial assets in the form of bank accounts and stock holdings. Those obviously are essentially costless to maintain until we get to the final forfeiture.
Where I'm going with this, it seems to me that the sale and relocation of assets is a very big deal. And I'm just wondering who makes those decisions.
It is an enormously challenging logistical problem. It's one that the Department of Justice, along with specifically people in the Marshals Service, people in the Treasury Department, work together to achieve a sale at the end of a forfeiture proceeding.
Is there a specific entity set up to handle these assets? How big are they that come into the country?
So it depends on the asset, and it is generally, but not always, the role of the U.S. Marshals Service to maintain the integrity of the physical asset.
How big are the assets that come into the country?
In this case, on the cases that we have been working on, the Amadea physically is enormous. It's the size of a building, and its value is roughly $500 million.
$500 million?
Yes, ma'am.
Of how many assets?
Just that one alone.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Cornyn, then Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you, Mr.